DeShaun Foster, when given a chance to address the terrible run game from week one, said the whole offense wasn't exactly executing the way they should. Just a lot of stuff that's easy to fix. Easy to fix? Is this run game such as an easy to fix? Maybe not. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From now until September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Where we get started today is the fact that UCLA finally had open practice when it came to their bye week, and you wonder how the team, after a couple of days off, it's a weird spot to have a bye week, right? You don't get to go back and just hit the ground running and say, all right, we need to go beat Indiana this week, right? No, they got a week off. Indiana gets a game, so it makes you wonder about the sluggishness of everything. But UCLA has a lot to address. So after the stinker of an opener, despite the victory, which some are saying 1-11, some are saying, hey, it's actually just a way for the new coaching staff to work out the kinks while learning what they don't have talent-wise with some various injuries, especially for UCLA on the offensive line. This is a team that has two of the three same tailbacks as last year, including the number 2 running back, although he became running back number 1 at the end of the year, DJ Harden. Then you have a good portion of these offensive linemen returning. Yes, you bring in Unige, you bring in, a mixture between Carlin moving to center on the offensive line, but the Bruins were down 2 starting tackles, both DeGiorgio and Unige out in week 1 for either pregame or during the game. UCLA ran the ball for 70 yards. Some of those were garbage scrambles. Not all of those are pre-planned. Some of those were just desperation runs from the redshirt senior quarterback, which makes you wonder, UCLA, which basically abandoned the run game, could not get it going at all. What can be an easy fix? Can it be an easy fix? As the quote from DeShaun Foster said. This is what his whole quote was when he was asked by the reporters during his media availability. DeShaun Foster, quote, just the whole offense just not exactly executing the way they should. A lot of stuff, it's easy to fix. It's identifying those things, stuff like that. So I'm not really worried about it. They should get out here and make sure they work through what they're trying to correct and get better. That's when it was asked. The question was, the run game didn't go well. Who did it worse? The offensive line, the tailbacks? Okay. And that was the answer he gave. Easy to fix. All right, is this an easy to fix? No, we saw a glaring difference between an Eric Bieniemy offense and a Chip Kelly offense. This is where, between the coaching, you're going to learn UCLA is not going to run the ball as successfully, despite similar players, from Chip Kelly to Eric Bieniemy. Unless they dramatically fix it from week 1 to week 3, which would be UCLA's first game to their second game. Okay? That is what UCLA has to work with, because under Chip Kelly, when the Bruins were able to run the ball more than they threw the ball, they were almost unbeatable. All right? So when they were playing from behind and they needed DTR or Dante or Garbers or whoever it was over the Chip Kelly tenure throwing the ball, when UCLA was able to run the ball more than they threw the ball, they would be successful. Well, now you bring in Eric Bieniemy. If you take a look at his numbers from the Washington Commanders, the biggest knock against Bieniemy was the fact that even his own offensive lineman at the end of the year was calling him out as to the fact that they did not run the football last year. Sam Cosmi, one of the right guards for the Washington Commanders, was quoted as saying after the season, I want to run the ball more. Me personally, being our own line, give us a chance to be better balanced. I feel like we weren't balanced. We were 30th in a 32-team league in attempts and runs. That's what he said about the Eric Bieniemy Washington Commander offense. If you look a little deeper about Bieniemy's offense, you'll see that Washington was at the bottom in attempts, near the bottom in yards, but when it came to yards per carry, they actually gained about 4.5. That was amongst the upper echelon of teams in the NFL. When the Commanders ran the ball, they actually did it quite successfully. Now, the debate is, were they so bad so they had to throw the ball from behind? the Washington fans don't seem to agree with that. But looking at the numbers, reading some more analysis, some of the Bieniemy offense did struggle with the route running, the closeness of it, the bulk of throws, because Sam Howell, while he struggled to get protection, UCLA has the similar problems coming in that Bieniemy has inherited, although they didn't give up many sacks in that first game for Garbers. He did escape and got pressured, but they didn't give up too much. The problem was he abandoned the running game. When DeShaun Foster was asked why they abandoned the running game, he's like, well, we just didn't execute. Did you hear the last question? We sucked running the ball, which is clear, which is fair enough. But Bieniemy, in his true season as the offensive coordinator, where he was not questioned about whether he was sharing the role or calling the plays with Andy Reid at the Chiefs, it's the fact that the Commanders basically abandoned the running game, although they were successful at it in very few attempts. They like to throw the football, and it's even more glaring when their quarterback, UCLA's quarterback, Garbers, was making poor decisions. So some of that, yes, with the offensive line, is going to need to be fixed. And there are so many times when, even on the broadcast, they're pointing out the offensive line is getting blown up and doing weird things in the backfield. And I'm not sure the running backs are to blame when they got so few cracks at it that TJ Harden got 9 carries for 9 yards. UCLA hardly had that bad of a day last year with Chip Kelly running the football, right? Last year, their worst games running the football came against Cal, 36 attempts for 70 yards. And then you had 32 attempts for 9 yards against Utah, where all the negative yardage, that sack yardage comes in and really negates any positives running the football. But UCLA had only 2 chances last year, 2 games last year, where they rushed for less than the season opening total of 71 yards. The problem was they faced a pretty tough Utah front in the early portion of the season and a sneaky tough Cal defense where, yes, UCLA had Garbers banged up a little early. They couldn't run the ball. That was the struggle. Now, Hawaii came to play. They seemed to have UCLA's number. And after the break, UCLA figured things out, but they threw the ball. Play action quite a bit. But play action is not going to work when everybody realizes that you're not going to run the football. So how much can Eric Bieniemy, which according to the data from last year, where he didn't run the football a lot with Washington, although this is a different game, this is the college model, is he going to have to simplify the offense and go, right? Because if you talk about complexity of an offense, Chip Kelly is not more complex than Eric Bieniemy. That was the big thing in the offseason. The knock on, can the players pick up the verbiage? Can they pick up the whole grasp that is the West Coast offense? That is asking a lot of a team that was running Chip Kelly simple routes, little crossing route here, there, but emphasis on running the football more than 50% of the time. A lot of the time, UCLA, the emphasis was physicality running the ball. And they couldn't do that successfully, but even in like a bad year with UCLA's offensive line, this team still was amongst the top upper third of the country, even better than that when it came to running the football. And here we are with a large part of similar players, a similar quarterback in a different system, and they could not run the ball. Now, you wonder if Hawaii was well game planned, they were ready to go, but they're blowing up the guards. They were blowing it up. And there was nowhere for these running backs to go. So I think I have to disagree with DeShaun Foster that it's just a lot of stuff that's easy to fix, unless we're proven wrong against Indiana. Identifying, IDing, stuff like that, the quote that DeShaun Foster used, which is interesting because you got a running back coach as your offensive coordinator, a former running back as the head coach, right? And then you got a running backs coach. So you would think with the running back talent, yes, Jalen Berger was not available and not ready for that week 1, so you wonder how that change of pace back could have gone, although he's not a running back number 1. He's not going to change everything. It's not an easy fix. It is not. And the history of Bieniemy in the last year, a lot of RPOs, and when he comes from Kansas City, they have Patrick Mahomes who would just throw the ball, so it's not a problem. And he's mobile. He can't take him down. He throws it. In the NFL, you get pass interference, you throw it 30 yards down the field. All right? It's a little different when you've got the non-Patrick Mahomes of the world, little poor offensive linemen, and quarterbacks who don't have the escapability of the best quarterback in the universe right now. Not that that's going to make a knock against Bieniemy and that they can't fix it, but thinking it's an easy fix, it was a little worrisome, right? It wasn't, they made mistakes, but they just got blown up at the line of attack. And I wonder how much of it was the abandoning of the running game just to win the game, that they didn't want to instill some principles moving forward. They needed to win the game. We'll find that out going forward, but that's why they got a week and a half to fix this, which there are still some more questionable decisions that DeShaun Foster addressed. So let's talk about those next on Locked On UCLA. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 120 million plus parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your parts are guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, because you get the parts you need at the prices you want, and it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep a ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusive to apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. Taking a look at more things DeShaun Foster really talked about in his media availability in this one, where, all right, third downs, fourth downs, some of those questionable decisions that we're all questioning, the wonders and worries about having a first-time head coach. Is that where you need to hire a game management coach, a time management coach? Is that an Eric Bieniemy saying we need to go for it, we don't? Well, I'm okay with the team being conservative when it's clear that the line wasn't being as successful as it was and UCLA won the football game. I believe the conservative approach was what did the job for UCLA in this game, all right? Conservatively playing this game instead of going for it fourth down at the 44, where they were not confident in being successful. It's not like, oh, we're going to get it. You're playing like EA Sports 14, the old college football game, and you just got to go for it in your own 20. Keep going for it, never punt it. And then you look at LSU, again, I keep bringing them up, but they just didn't take the points. Teams who don't take the points can struggle. Last year, UCLA did not take the points, and they were one of the worst red zone scoring teams in the country. They forced the issue through some picks. Their kickers were not reliable. UCLA, it's okay in my mind to play under DeShaun Foster a little conservatively when they haven't proven the offensive line that can move the needle running the football, or consistently when a team brings pressure, have the quarterback or the protection for the quarterback to make that play just yet. All right, that is where I'm okay with some of these fourth down decisions. Yes, 44-yard line, 4th and 5. Do you go for it? You're a little deeper. You're not sure you can trust the kicker just yet. This is before the Mateen Bagani came in and knocked through 3 field goals. And then this is what the question was. How would you describe your philosophy on fourth down? It depends on the situation. With the momentum going, I was probably going to go for it, and then they end up calling a timeout, so we kicked the field goal. And this is when he talked about decision-making with fourth downs and talking to Bieniemy. Yeah, every decision that we did was me. It wasn't, I'm telling everybody what to do. There's no decisions made by any other coaches. It wasn't, I'm telling everybody what to do, is what he says. There's no decisions being made by other coaches, so anything that's happening is coming directly from me. Although I did have this thought that maybe Bieniemy is telling Foster, yeah, we need to do it, or we're not doing this. But I would think the coach has a feel for, it's not working, we're going to punt it. All right? And now that's the give and take of, do we believe the guy is ready in year one as a head coach with no prior experience? Those are the give and takes. And this is what he said about the 4th and 5 at the Hawaii 44. What about that fourth down? He said, yeah, I just didn't like the situation at the time. 4th and 5 is a unique spot where maybe you see analytically go for it. You see on the opposite side, the 50, you should go for it. And then what UCLA saw and what what DeShaun Foster saw and what I saw was the team is not consistent enough in this game to protect the quarterback and complete passing routes. Were one of the knocks against Bieniemy. I think I mentioned this earlier. I'll bring it again. Looking at a film study and write up about his work about Bieniemy's offense, the routes are sometimes The spacing was an issue. Now, you could talk about the Commanders. They're not the Chiefs where they got everything ironed out, or you could just throw it to Kelsey or everything and dump it down. But at the college level, if all the players haven't figured it out just yet, then maybe 4th and 5 at the 44 is not a good place to give the team the football, which they didn't. And Hawaii didn't have good starting field position. And with the defense leading the way, then they were able to get the job done and win the game. All right? So Foster, at least publicly, trying to make it clear, these are my decisions. I'm telling people what to do. This is my team, regardless of what people might think or everything. And that I didn't feel good. And I think those are the right decisions. I disagree that the fact that they're going to immediately figure out the running game in a week and a half. Now, maybe they do and they surprise us. I doubt it. It's going to be up to Ethan Garbers, who can throw in and find some completions that can lead to some more openings for the run game once teams set the game plan against a better decision-making Ethan Garbers, who's still trying, as all these UCLA players are trying to do, digest the West Coast offense. Now, the conservative approach, that's good week 1. To do so to get the win, yes. Now, if you have an opportunity to do so against LSU, to do so against Penn State, Oregon, and you need to win the game, you got to go for it. But in games where you're favored and you're the better team, you play like it, and you expect your defense to get some stops. You expect your team to get stops and then move the football later and continue drives where you're not stalling at the opponent's near 50-yard line, near midfield. I think that's a fair shot. The confusing thing is that it seemed like apparently what the broadcast saying, the long distance kicker and the short distance kicker, not sure if that's true or what have you, but another thing brought up to DeShaun Foster involved how far is Bagani's distance if you wouldn't trot him out for the 52-yarder attempted by Glessner. Again, the quote by DeShaun Foster was, Blake just started the game, and we were already going into the game with 2 kicks. And they were going to switch with the 2 kicks or kickers. The distance did determine what it was. If Mateen was up, he would have gone for the 52-yarder. So I'm wondering, are they still flipping? There is no oars on the depth chart. Bagani was the number 1. He played like the number 1. The co-Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week, who nailed 3 field goals with ease, didn't make me worried, and buried the game winner, where in years past that might have been a sketchy proposition, especially last year when your team made 8 of 17 field goals. All right? So I'm not sure why this 2 kicker situation is arising when he's saying something a little different than the fact that UCLA might have a 2 kicker situation. Are they flipping? Just give the job to Bagani, and let's not worry about if Glessner's going to make a kick. No fault on him. I've seen him play at Montana State. He was just fine. But Bagani, who was the backup at Cal, started at the end of the year because he was making his kicks. And he should have started this year for whatever reason. If maybe that's the case and they're trying to keep it under wraps, I don't understand. But what I get from that quote is that there's still a battle for the kicking spot. And the punting was still a little shaky, right? The 60-yard punt was still a 20-yard shank that took a big favorable UCLA bounce, flipping UCLA field position. And yes, Hawaii weather could be a little funky with the breeze here or there. I'm not sure if that played a factor into it, but UCLA apparently has split kickers and split punters. And when coaches are splitting multiple positions in a position of need and they can't decide who's better, that's not always a good thing, all right? Whether Chip Kelly didn't want to say last year whether it was 1, 2, or this quarterback or the third quarterback. This year we can't figure out what punter it is. UCLA, if their offense is going to look like this, is going to be punting a lot. So they need to pin teams deep. Whether it's Chase Berry, Brody Richter, someone's got to win this battle. I would pin all my kicking game hopes field goal-wise on Mateen Bagani. I think that's the right move to do. Clearly, after he performed in week 1, if he just doesn't have the leg, then okay. If he can't make a 50-yarder, then we'll make sure, get him in line for 49-yarder, make sure the accuracy is there. I'll take the accuracy, see if he can leg out the distance. Or if they have the long distance versus the short distance kicker, okay, and you live with the accuracy of Glessner or Bagani. But if there's 2 kickers going back and forth, I'm not sure I'm in full agreement of that. And that wouldn't make much sense what we heard in the broadcast, what he's saying, what we saw play out on the screen, which hopefully can be decided in the next week and a half. Lester's got the bigger leg. I think there's no question about it. Kickoffs and a longer field goal, reasonable, but the better kicker when it comes to accuracy, placement, how you strike the ball, that's Bieniemy. Okay. And it's all got to be ironed out by this Indiana game, or else. Or else what? We'll talk about it next on Locked On UCLA. Well, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now. From now until September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you got to do is have a Google account and have a current form of payment and cancel anytime. Visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Okay. So after dissecting and questioning and giving my thoughts about what DeShaun Foster had to say at practice, about decisions made in week 1 and what's playing out at the moment, let's take a brief look into this Indiana game, right? This is a UCLA game where you got Locked On Spencer McLaughlin. You got some of the Big Ten boys, if you watch the Locked On Big Ten Squad episodes, where it's apparently being dubbed the battle of last place in the Big Ten. All right, the battle for last place. While I still think Northwestern's around there, people have things to say about Purdue, and I still think UCLA can compete in that Minnesota game, and you still got Fresno State on the schedule. It will be a bad omen and bad vibes if you've got Indiana coming to town, which they will be, then week 3 to the Rose Bowl, as a team that's cocky and confident that they're going to get their second or third win of the year, whatever it is at that point, right? Versus UCLA, and they're confident about coming across the country to play in Pasadena at UCLA's home opener and get a win there as like a win. Like, they're confident about it. That's kind of I'm put off by that. I'm frustrated by it. And that's just how UCLA looked week 1. It's how they are. Mind you, a few years ago, Indiana was top 10 with Michael Penix Jr. almost taking down Ohio State. Almost taking him down in a year Ohio State made it to the CFP final with like Justin Fields. That's how good Indiana was a couple years ago. You've got a baller head coach who's coming out, the quote master, we're going to an old-ass stadium to kick somebody's butt, right? That's his goal every week. Not just directed towards UCLA, that's his goal every week. All right? Where the UCLA's at practice, apparently I think it was tweeted out by Ben Bolt saying like, all right, who's your daddy? Maybe he's trying to fire up these guys. Maybe he's trying to fire them. Maybe he's trying to taunt the Hoosiers. I doubt that. I think football coaches are smarter, unless, everything's videoed during the open practice. You say one thing to hype up your guys, it gets blown out of proportion. But what's being billed as one of the bigger games for the bottom half of the Big Ten, UCLA is expected to finish 15th. Got people now projecting them to go 1-11, 2-10, a team that's maybe got a base ceiling of 4 wins. UCLA, this is turning into a must-win, especially if you want a bowl-eligible season. To make a bowl game, UCLA is a must-win. A must-win at home against Indiana. All right, it's frustrating that it is. They've got a new head coach. They're undergoing a new tenure as well. And in most years, any year, I would be very confident, regardless of what talent UCLA is bringing, that they should be able to handle Indiana at home at the Rose Bowl and just take care of business. Might look ugly. They might dominate them. And now here we are, a team that's cocky and confident. And the question about the Big Ten is its absolute depth. 18 teams in, which with basketball, it's going to be a very deep league. It's going to be a very deep league. Football-wise, everybody's wondering after Ohio State, after Michigan, yes, maybe Oregon this year, although they struggled with Idaho. Oregon's slow start. Michigan did not look impressive. And Penn State's always on that short list too. You throw in those guys across town. UCLA's been just brought in with the rest of those guys saying, they're Big Ten, they're going to suck. When larger part, most of these Big Ten teams have not been super, super great in years past near the bottom. And while I want UCLA to not be there, you lose to Indiana, and the Bruins are going to be stuck there at the bottom of the conference. And even if UCLA starts 2-0, there's still a very big possibility by week 7, week 6, that they're under 500 with the brutal gauntlet coming up. Now, they can go maybe pull off something crazy, but the Bruins have a big game to satisfy what is an unsatisfied fan base, right? As UCLA fans, it's tough because we want a lot and we don't show up, and it's just there, right? Those are the answers. The ability to go do something else on a Saturday afternoon with pretty perfect weather, to not make it to the Rose Bowl. The excuses of how far UCLA is from the Rose Bowl, even though almost all the UCLA fans are closer to the Rose Bowl than they are to the campus of UCLA. So theoretically, it's easier to get to the Rose Bowl than it is to get to Westwood to watch a game at Pauley, so I don't buy that excuse. And just the buzz. Well, yes, there's no buzz after beating Hawaii 16-13, and everybody's going to laugh and laugh and laugh. Yes, I want to give this staff time. They're recruiting. There's going to be a talent gap and a talent dip, I think, next year, because the team will be younger and will have to hit the portal very hard if they want to immediately compete in 25, which makes the Scott the thought all that more scarier thought that in this year, this is the team that's probably going to be more talented senior-wise this year and have a lot more playing experience than next year, where it's going to be more of a youth infusion. You want to get off to a good start. And the Indiana game is an important win to get, to keep the fan base, keep the, even myself, we're a little skeptical, a lot more skeptical than we were at the start of kickoff versus Hawaii. The skepticism is at an all-time high. And we know as UCLA fans that we keep that as high as possible, even during the best of times. And now as the Bruins begin to rebuild, you see the difference in coaching from Chip Kelly to the DeShaun Foster and the Eric Bieniemy-led offense too, right? Where the talent gap is because of Chip Kelly. But the maximum potential of this talent was figured out by Chip Kelly. He liked what he did, liked what he had, and did what he needed to do, and eventually left. Now UCLA is trying to fix that talent and get it better in years future while trying to figure out how to utilize this talent best, which ironically might be the Chip Kelly offensive model in a sense, simplified, find ways to open up the run game and not force so many deep patterns and Garbers to play like a Mahomes or an NFL-style quarterback, but then turn it into a new identity. I'm not sure if that identity will be found by week 2 in year 1 or week 3 in year 1 by DeShaun Foster, but they got to turn things around quicker and figure it out. It's an odd spot to have a bye. It's torturous for us to sit here for the next week and a half speculating and wondering how this team's going to be. I don't know. It'll be fun all the year anyways, right? So like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Get excited for more UCLA basketball content, football content, and everything in between. So get your hands up, Bruins fans. It's an 8 clap time. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.